Welcome back, touring car fans. Once again, the Alpha Touring Challenge has a special challenge ready and waiting. Once a season, a unique challenge for the drivers to take on. Sometimes it's extra heats. Other seasons, it's been a full grid invert. This season, you're looking at Fuji Speedway with an extra long endurance race. 80 minutes of racing is coming up. One pit stop with a required tire change. Now, putting on 1, 2, 3, 4 tires, it doesn't matter. They have to change something. You will see most people put on either 1 or 2 though, because it takes the same amount of time to put on 1 or 2. And that'll be the shortest amount of time that the drivers can spend on pit lane. So what you will most likely see today is the pit strategies be quite varied. No, you're not going to see any fuel saving to gain time. It's all going to be a pure tire save and then race to the end. And some drivers are going to look to gain time on the undercut, pick up fresh tires early on, and then others will try to go long and use those fresh tires to their advantage. So we'll see how that plays out today. An extra long race to observe it all. Right now we have our open qualifying that is kicking off, and that is a split qualifying. So the Delta class is out there first, and they are out on track right now. We're currently looking at Zachary Bowman. It looks like, I'm trying to see who started a lap. I think they're all still on an out lap. Fuada Rijla, so Fuada Rijla is leading the field as they all start their first laps here. And then Christian Oss runs behind him with the 30 car of Brian Son a little further back. And these guys have come out quite spread out. There's still a few cars out on the front straight, and that includes drivers such as the 52 of Brian Saab and the 88 of Craig Lautenslaughter is over there as well, along with the 34 of Brian Inagaki. But it'll be Fuada Rijla setting the pace. So we'll watch him come through the last sector here at Fuji Speedway. We've had 3 separate rounds at Fuji Speedway before. The first one all the way back in Season 5, Round 3 of Season 5. Micah Hendricks puts it on pole, brings home the victory in a tight battle with Francois Schenck. That was his first career victory. I believe that was the second or third race of his career early on in Season 5. And then we came here a season later in Season 6. James Carr put it on pole. And that was the first time that we ran the no chicane layout, which is what we're running today. But Micah Hendricks won that race as well. And then one more time in Season 7, we came back here and ran a sprint challenge. And Micah Hendricks put it on pole and swept both those races. So he's 4 for 4 here at Fuji Speedway. It'll be interesting to see if he can continue that streak today. He has not locked out pole every time, and he's not had to deal with Michael Polasek. And a lot's changed since Season 7, the last time that we attended Fuji Speedway. It's Season 12 now, and the field a bit bigger, a bit more diverse. Right now it's the Delta class leading the way. If we pop up the times and see who is leading, right now it is Brian Son on top of the Delta class, and they're still going to get, I believe, 2 more laps in here. They'll get to finish the lap they're on, and then they'll have time for, some of the guys up front may have time for 2 more laps after this one. Christian Ost has just gone purple in Sector 2. And the timings at the bottom of the board there don't look right to me, but the sector times are definitely correct, so you can trust the colors. But Fuada Rijla is about to come across the line now. The long kilometer long straightaway here at Fuji Speedway. Huge run down to turn 1. Slipstream could be really important today. He comes across with a 47.5 and improves to 3rd. So let's see what Ost can do as he crosses the line, not improving in the final sector and not improving his time. Brian Son does not improve either, though he remains on Delta Pole. Kyle Murray has a purple sector 1, yellow sector 2. Let's see if he improves here. Jason Lynn also on a good lap. He's down in 10th right now, and he jumps to 5th with a 48 dead. And then Kyle Murray comes across the line, and that is not an improvement. So we'll look to Evan Clavijo, who does improve, up to 11th. And now Lawton Slaughter about to come across the line. And a few more guys really improving here. Inagaki, Saab, Bowman, all looking for a little boost up the leaderboard. And Lawton Slaughter goes up to 9th. Inagaki 4th. Saab 6th. Inagaki with a 47.5 in his little 4OG's machine. And that Veloster getting the tow from Lawton Slaughter, helping him out a little bit down the straightaway. And the guys at the front of this field, like Fuada Rijla, may be struggling a little bit without that slipstream to help them out. Zachary Bowman across the line now. He jumps to P9, and now we wait for Fuada Rijla to cross the line one final time. We'll see if he gets to it before everyone manages to cross, or before the halfway point. So at 7.5 minutes, the Delta class is done. The Alpha class pulls out of the pit lane. And I think the Alpha class right now, yeah, they're all stacked up at the end of pit lane there. So we'll wait for Al Rizla to come across, and he will get to do another lap here. 7:20 left on the board. And then Christian Ost and Brian Son. And Son crossing the line right there just as the time goes. So Ost is the last car that will have a chance to set a lap here as all the Alpha drivers burst out behind him there. And Fuada Rizla leads this group. So Brian Son currently sits on Delta Pole with a 47.2. Ost needs to find a 10th. Clavijo crosses the line there, manages to jump up to 2nd. Richtmeyer across the line and sets an improvement, but still 13th. Lawton Slaughter, Saab, waiting on them to finish their lap. Saab will not be doing so. His is not an improvement. Rizla is yellow in the first sector. This last lap going to be difficult for these drivers to improve on it because they have, well, you've been cooking your tires the whole time. And you get this late in the quali session running full blast. And it's just going to be difficult to find the grip you need to improve. But he and Ost are still out there right now, on board with Ost through the final sector. And I don't think that this is going to be an improvement for Rizla, unless he's been hugging very close to his personal best and cooks up a good sector 3. Ost similarly struggling. And up through the final corner. You see a couple different approaches to this corner. Ost hugs it a little tight. Nice and slow around the apex, over the crest. And he's pulling off. So neither driver is going to improve here. And Brian Son will take Delta Pole here at Fuji Speedway. So we turn our attention to the Delta class immediately behind. Matthew Mayer will lead this field onto the first lap here at Fuji. So we'll let him take you on a little tour. Heading down to turn number 1, looking for about the 120-130 meter board. Hard on the brakes, then you sweep in. Careful to keep the nose down so that the car doesn't wiggle too much as you come over that crest. It's going to want to lose the grip and wiggle, slide out on you. Then coming up to turn 2, quick left-hander. You cut across as much of this as possible. The curbing is going to push you out wide. You're going to be prepared for that. And then the sweeper. I think you want to hug this one as tight as you can. Maybe a small little double apex. For the most part, hugging very tightly as Matthew does here. And then you brake just shy of the 50. Sweeping down through here. Again, same situation as turn 1. You got to keep the nose down. So that the car doesn't slide out on you since you are going downhill, like kind of over a crest. And then full throttle all the way down to the no chicane, and you're looking for the white or the yellow ad board on the right side to start, cut over the curb, try and stay out of the grass on the left, keep the momentum up, and then you brake hard, come over this crest. I prefer to not cut over the curbing there because you end up washing out like that. He may have gone off track there and invalidated the lap. We'll see. He hugs it tightly over the penultimate corner. Now through the final corner, I think he can go out a little bit wider there. Some people take a narrower line. He's going to take the momentum up for a nice little sort of middle of the road line through here. I like this. Sweeping out over one curb. Don't want to touch the second one. It's been known to damage cars. And onto the straightaway to finish his first lap here at Fuji Speedway. A little bit scrappy, but it's the first lap on tires that are still warming up. I expect for all these drivers, you know, the second lap is always the best one. You're just trying to find the limits of the car, and they all come across the line and set their first times. And you see Gonzalo Fabi, he's being incorrectly scored there, but he is technically on pole right now with McKenzie P2, Mayer 3, Mitchell 4, Bertolucci 5. And now the real race to the end to pole position begins for these guys with just over 3 minutes to go. Delta pole decided. Alpha pole still up for grabs as you see these times start to filter in. So let's jump back a little further in the field. We'll look at our current championship leader. It's Michael Polasek. And he has picked up 3 wins to date, most of anybody so far this season. In fact, nobody up to this point has a repeat victory. So he'll be looking to make it 4 today. But for now, the 45 holds a very slim lead in the championship over teammate Logan McKenzie and rival Micah Hendricks, who is expected to do well today. I mean, the man is 4 for 4 every single time the series has come here. He has cleaned house, and he's in the Audi, a car that he has plenty of experience with and will surely be quite powerful here today down the straightaway. The question is, how will it deal with that no chicane, with a couple of the other curbs throughout this track? Be interesting to see. He comes through the final sector here, but he is not anywhere near the first car coming across the line here. Matthew Mayer comes across and does improve, but John Lazan pips him out. Gonzalo Fabi holds on to third, but does not improve. McKenzie will slip ahead of him, and then Ian Bertolucci up into third with a flying lap for the SRG driver. And SRG 2 and 3 right now as we're looking at Bertolucci, and he is actually in a Elantra this week, switching from the Veloster using that one free car swap. Michael Polasek takes pole. Hendricks clocks in 2.5 seconds behind, or 2.5 tenths behind, excuse me. Still good enough for second place. And they'll have time for one more lap. These guys in the back half of the field. In the front half of the field, I think they're going to get 2. So looking to Polasek. He's trying to find a little bit of a slipstream from Dejoux ahead. Francois Schink is on an improvement. And he comes down the straightaway now. He'll definitely only get one more lap. No one to slipstream with. But he still manages to put in a time that's good enough for 8th place. And now here we go. Gonzalo Fabi with a green sector, a purple sector. And going around a B4D car there. Lazan letting him through. Fabi through the last couple corners here. But right now it is the 12 coming off the final corner. And what will it be for Matthew Mayer? He's got 2 green sectors. He needs 3 tenths to pick up pole position from the 30. And down to the line. It's a 46.4. Not good enough. And he will be pulling to the side. Despite the fact that, you know, we have a little bit of time here for some of these drivers to finish up laps. McKenzie comes across the line, jumps up to 4th. Fabi just below him in 5th. Mike D'Almeida is about to cross. He jumps to 10th. That's a good run from him. 47 dead. And Matt Zepka has a good improvement coming up. He's coming down to the start finish. Raymond 2 cannot improve on his final lap, but Zepka's up to P7, excuse me, here at the very end of qualifying. Castillo improves up to P16 in class. And Francois Schink is wrapping up, or no, I think he might be done. No, he is still on a lap. He is going to get to finish this. And so down the straightaway, here he comes. And Francois Schink will wrap, I think he will be wrapping up qualifying. Some of these cars behind him might still be on a lap. But Schink does improve to 46.7. And McKenzie and Lazon and Mike D'Almeida are all still out there. And it looks like they are on valid laps, so we'll follow them. It'll be hard for them to improve this late in the game. Same as the Delta drivers. They just asked for too much of their tires for too long of a period of time. But Lazon out of the final corner. McKenzie just behind him. McKenzie has improved his middle sector. And Mike D'Almeida, I think he's not going to be improving. Lazon, he misses improving by half a tenth. McKenzie improves by a couple thousandths. That couldn't have been a huge improvement. I barely saw the number change. And Mike D'Almeida abandons his lap. So qualifying is done here at Fuji International Speedway. We will be right back to show you the starting grid for the race and 80 minutes of racing coming right up. Stay tuned.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. I'm feeling good.
We are just a couple minutes away from the green flag here at Fuji Speedway. Let's take a look at the final starting grid for the race. Starting, of course, with our current championship leader, Michael Polasek. He holds a 32-point championship advantage over his teammate Logan McKenzie. And then third place in the championship, just another 6 points back, is Micah Hendricks, who is right alongside Polasek on the front row today. Then on the second row, you have Matthew Mayer and McKenzie himself. Then Gonzalo Fabi, Ian Bertolucci, Schink, Zepka, Lozan, and Mitchell round out the top 10 here at Fuji. And then you have Mike Yamita, Connor Acatella, Raymond 2, all starting in front of your Delta pole sitter, Brian Son. He currently sits fourth in the Delta standings, 16 points off of championship leader Spencer Clark. Clark himself is only 1 point ahead of Christian Ost after taking the championship lead after last week's race at Indianapolis. Cooper Akers, Mark Darnell, they start in between Delta Pole and Evan Clavijo, Christian Ost. They are Delta P2 and P3, 17th and 18th on the grid. Ost is essentially tied for that Delta Championship lead, so his result today is going to be really important for him. Santiago Castillo, David Thomas are the last couple of Delta drivers there inside the top 20. And then we roll down to Fuad Al-Rijla, Brian Inagaki, Lewis Gilbert, Kyle Murray, Brian Saab, Jason Lynn, Zachary Bowman, Craig Lautenslager, Spencer Clark. There's your Delta Championship leader starting all the way down in P29. That's 12th in the Delta class, and he is 11 positions behind his primary championship rival, Christian Ost. So he's got some work to do today. He's going to be hoping that he can get a few positions. If there was one race to qualify poorly at, it is this one. You've got a kilometer-long straightaway to get around people, and it is an 80-minute race, so a lot of time to get it done. Mitchell Rickmeyer alongside him on that row. Then you have JB Dejoux, Juan Lazart, Paul Mikulicek, and Daniel Sedano at the back of the field. 34 cars ready to race here at Fuji International Speedway, running the layout without a chicane today. And that chicane is... See, I think this layout be run. The cars get a nice run around that corner at high speed, as opposed to having to go down to first gear for about 2 or 3 corners. We'll see how it plays out. One forced tire change in the pit stops. We're just a couple seconds away from seeing the red lights. And here they go. Michael Polasek leads us off at Fuji Speedway. And we are go here from Fuji International Speedway. Michael Polasek leads them off, and there are cars all over the place back there. A lot of people struggled to get a good start, and now in the run down to turn 1, there is going to be carnage back there in the field. They are 3 wide, all over the place. 4 wide there. It's Gonzalo Fabi making it 4 wide through turn 1, and they all make it work. That was an insane move. He hasn't finished it yet on Connor Acatella. Micah Hendricks has pulled ahead of Michael Polasek through turn 1, and he leads this race. And here they come. They're all starting to filter out now. Hendricks continues to lead the race with Polasek, McKenzie, Schink, and Mayer behind. You see there, Acatella might actually be getting back by Gonzalo Fabi there, and that is a big tussle for positions further back in the pack. They are still going at it. Fabi on the right side of Acatella. He's going to finally get around him. Further ahead, Mike D'Almeida slips ahead of Ian Bertolucci, and Damon Mitchell is ahead of Matt Zepka as they go through the no chicane for the first time and then come through to enter the final sector of Fuji Speedway. the slowest sector of Fuji Speedway, and this is why I think that Audi's going to struggle. So they're going to be able to close up to the back of Hendricks here, but will they be able to get by him on the straightaway? Lots of stuff going on back here. They're 2x2 still fighting. Gonzalo Fabi, Raymond 2, Connor Acatella, Ian Bertolucci. That's Mark Darnell working around the outside of Cooper Acres as well. And then further back, Santiago Castillo and Christian Ost going wheel to wheel. Off the final corner, Castillo gets the better run. Hendricks leads this race down to turn number 1. Here they come across the start-finish line, and they are wheel to wheel in this one. Polasek, your championship leader, alongside Micah Hendricks. Hendricks takes the inside line into turn number 1. He's pretty far down on that inside line. Oh, they both go off track. They touch. They come together, and somehow they manage to not have a little wreck there. Polasek is going to lose a couple positions here. Matthew Mayer goes by. And Francois Schink, well, that's Francois Schink who went by. Matthew Mayer is going to go side by side with the championship leader. They touch. And Polasek's going to tuck in behind for the moment. Let's see if he goes on the attack on board with Polasek. Oh, and he goes deep in there. And he's going to have to relent for the moment. So a near disaster averted for a couple of the lead cars and lead championship contenders. Micah Hendricks avoids getting spun off there by Polasek, and that looked like just kind of the nature of Hendricks was on such a shallow line there. Polasek was on a more aggressive line, and they sort of glued together. Here's Kyle Murray. You're looking at him on the outside of Daniel's, or no, that is Daniel Cedeno. That's Kyle Murray and JB Dejoux side by side. Cedeno has worked his way up from the back of the field. He's gained 7 spots since the start of this race, and Dejoux has to slot in behind the 111 as Lautenslaughter and Mitchell Richtmeyer battle as they enter Sector 3, and they are going to go wheel to wheel through this twisty part of the track. And I think Craig is going to manage to go by there. So now we look to our leader, Logan McKenzie. He has opened up a 0.8 of a second gap over Micah Hendricks. I imagine Hendricks will close that up shortly, but he gets a little breathing room, the bonus point for leading a lap at the start of this race here. 4 minutes into an 80-minute endeavor. We're looking at Spencer Clark, your Delta Championship leader. He too is on a charge. 7 spots gained since the start of this race. He's looking for a move on Fuad originally. He won't get it. Acres behind. Can't find anything on Brian Saab. And so they continue on board with Spencer Clark here as he chases Fuad Rijla. And just behind, we're looking at Mikalichik. He is trailing Cedeno. Oh, a little bit of contact. Oh, no, we're going to watch something here. And he's into the wall. Craig may have avoided him. Mitchell definitely avoided him. And he just he leaned on Cedeno just a little too much going through that corner. And he could not keep the car from pitching into the wall. We'll go and look up here. Brian Saab, Brian Son, and Son looking for a move on Saab. He gets a nose in up the inside as they enter Sector 3. A little slide from the 30. Saab goes wide but gathers it up, and he manages to stay ahead of the Penguin RC car. Now that is Zachary Bowman looking opportunistic here, and why not? Around the outside into the final corner. Let's see if he nails this little crossover move. He could get a good run out of the final corner, and he does. From here, it's going to be side draft versus actual slipstream, and he's going to tuck back in here to get some slipstream as they head down to turn number 1. We'll look to the front of the field because Matthew Mayer under pressure from Michael Polasek, who is on a minor recovery here after going off track with Micah Hendricks. And that is a move done. So he gets up into 5th position. And Kyle Murray is close behind Jason Lynn, but won't be doing anything in turn number 1 there. So we'll look to Raymond 2. He's back in the Honda, sporting the classic Real Friends Racing livery, running ahead of Connor Acatella and behind Mike De Almeida, the two double Motorsport double yellow drivers. Gonzalo Fabi making a move on Matt Zepka through that turn, and he gets that job done, so he moves up into 8th position. Fabi's lost 3 since the start of the race, despite that big 4-wide move at the start. I think what happened was he got a bad start and had to make up some ground right immediately. Darnell and Akers still going at it for this 15th position, and Akers is going to pull ahead as they roll through the no chicane. Akers goes a bit wide to hold that, and now here comes Clavijo up the inside of Darnell, and the Delta leader pulls ahead for P15 overall. And let's see if we can get the positions to display overall, and you see there Clavijo 15th, but first in class, and Christian Ost not far behind him. He is running 1.7 seconds off of Evan right now, just behind the ATR Argentos car of Santiago Castillo. Just ahead, Mark Darnell using as much slipstream as he can to try and slingshot around Clavijo on the run down to turn number 1. Clavijo pretty far down the inside of the track and comes back up on the defense. Ost is on the outside of Castillo behind, but we'll look at this because Darnell's trying to hold this around the outside. He can't do it, and Clavijo will go back through on him. And further back, this is a huge gaggle of cars. We're looking at Zachary Bowman and Kyle Murray. This is still a battle for the 24th position. Brian Saun is just ahead of them. He's in that spot. And then Brian Saab in 23rd. He's been less bothered by this group fighting behind, but they're still well within striking distance. Will Bowman try something here? He almost gets into the back of Saun, but manages to keep it off the bumper. And now looks to the left, has to tuck back in. Damon Mitchell is now the next driver under pressure from Gonzalo Fabi here in this race. And Fabi's looking for a nice opportunistic move up the inside, and Mitchell's going to have to let that one go, and Fabi gets that one done. He's up into P7. And now Brian Saab is under pressure from Brian Saun. They'll go side by side through Sector 3, and Saun's going to slip ahead. Saab's trying to hold the outside as Bowman sticks the nose in. Jason Lynn goes really wide in the background. Saab basically pushing Saun up into the final corner and goes around the outside. Bowman is in the middle. Saab goes very wide, and he's going to have to lose out 3 spots in 1 corner. There goes Brian Saab. Brian Saun, Kyle Murray, and Zachary Bowman. They all go through on the 52, and that promotes all of them a spot in this race. And looking back to the overall lead of this race, McKenzie is by no means safe or making up any sort of gap. In fact, I imagine that his competitors are probably doing some fuel saving behind him. Hendricks has closed that gap and is comfortably sitting in P2. Then you have Francois Schink and Michael Polasek all just behind. They have all broken off into a 4-car field. Matthew Mayer is trying to hold on to this group, but he's slowly losing them. 1.1 second gap right now. And then John Lazan another 2 seconds back. So that lead group pack of 4 cars looks like it might be the one that's going to start to leave us here. 10 minutes into this race, so you still have 70 whole minutes to go. And with pit stops today, you're going to see 2 options because of the forced tire change. Drivers have to change at least 1 tire during their pit stop, which means the pit stops will take a minimum of 20 seconds. So saving fuel doesn't actually matter. That means that you are going to see pit stops taking place at a different time than usual. Mark Darnell going for a move in the last corner on Clavijo, gets around him. Clavijo's going to get the better run off the corner. He'll tuck back in for some slipstream, and here comes Castillo looking for an opportunity. He's actually going to move alongside Clavijo, so now Clavijo boxed in. Here comes the ATR Argentos driver. He keeps that nose in there as they head down to turn number 1. Now Clavijo's actually bump drafting Mark Darnell into the turn. They approach the braking zone. Castillo alongside Clavijo. He has a nose in on Darnell too. Darnell has to give him the space. He's going for 2 passes here, and the Audi is showing its raw straight line speed. Now Darnell has stayed ahead. We look back to Brian Saab. He has just been passed by JB Dejoe, who he is making up some spots. He's gained 5 since the start of this race. I just got a notification that Spencer Clark went off track. David Thomas did as well. Both of them seems to have gone okay. Connor Acatella and Raymond 2 are going wheel to wheel, and they have Ian Bertolucci behind, 2 on the inside, and they're going to go down in the no chicane like this. They are going to go 2 wide through here. Bertolucci trying to go around the outside of 2, and 2 cannot keep the momentum. That's a great move by the SRG driver, and he is currently in P12. Got a bad start to this race. He's still lost 6 positions since the start, so trying to make that back up. And that move, a pretty big part of it. We're looking at Lewis Gilbert going around Craig Lautenslaughter here. Gilbert was involved in an incident earlier. He has fully lost his front bumper. A pretty efficient means of weight saving, but I think there may be some other things broken under there. As Lautenslaughter looks like he is well faster than him in a straight line. And that's the battle for 13th in the Delta class. We'll look back to John Lazan. Gonzalo Fabi has closed this gap relatively quickly and now looks to the right side of the breakfast for dinner driver and pulls around him without much fuss. And speaking of pulling around someone without much fuss, Polasek got around Schink a lap or 2 ago, and Schink has actually fairly quickly lost this group. That's now a 9/10 of a second gap, and this could very quickly become a 3-car group up ahead. Oh no! Something has happened with the Delta leader, and Evan Clavijo went off at turn 1. Christian Ost and Evan Clavijo make contact as they exit the corner, and Brian Inagaki becomes your new Delta leader. He's gained 5 spots in this race, and now he inherits the Delta lead off of that incident between the Delta leaders. I'm gonna have to go back and see what happened there, because Clavijo was a couple seconds ahead last we checked, but something happened to him in turn 1. It looked like he was rejoining. Him and Ost made contact as he rejoined. And now Inagaki is the minute factor here. Another thing to look at is that Christian Ost, his front bumper is damaged. So until the pit stops, that's going to be something they're going to have to deal with. And speaking of the pit stops, I said the pit stops may be happening at a different time. Usually we see people fuel save, go as long as they can, set fast laps on low fuel, and then overcut. And the overcut is usually the best strategy unless you're encountering traffic. But now, everyone's going to want to balance the tires. So a lot of people are probably going to look to pit around the midpoint of the race. Hendricks going very deep into turn 1 to try and defend this, but Polasek is going to pull alongside the 473. And coming to turn number 2, Hendricks will tuck in behind. I think before the first pit stop, not a whole lot of reason to fight. Everyone, I think, still trying to figure out where the tires are going, how long they're going to last. And we have big news right now. Evan Clavijo is on pit lane getting the tire change. Now, remember what I said about people stopping at strange times? The fuel limit is so high that this is within the pit window. This is a scheduled stop. He's doing this. I think after the incident, he's gone, well, I'm in traffic now. What if I just pit myself all the way out of anyone's range, out of everyone's mind and sight, and just run fast laps to the end of the race? He's put on the fresh set of boots, either probably two fresh fronts, and he'll take those all the way to the end of the race. Another quick update further back in the field, Zachary Bowman had an incident, and that I've never seen the front hood dented in like that. Oh, it looks like it's just sitting on top. That thing is probably going to fall out at any moment, but I've never seen it get loose and just sit in there. It's rattling around. But Bowman crashed at some point. So he's been demoted down to 10th in Delta class, 28th overall. And overall, McKenzie still leads from Polasek and Hendricks. And Schenk now 1.1 back, so still struggling to hang on, but he is hanging on. He's got Matthew Mayer hanging on to him as well. So it could be a 3-car battle for the lead. It could be a 5-car battle for the lead. Just depends. Damon Mitchell has crawled up to the back of John Lazon, and he's brought Mike D'Almeida and Matt Zepka with him. So this could turn into a 4-car battle for a P7 here very quickly. And Gonzalo Fabi has not pulled away from Lazon as quickly as I think he would have liked. Only a half second between them still. And he's got 5.3 seconds to the next car. So he's going to have to drive pretty well, pretty efficiently to make up any more spots in this race. But Evan Clavijo, I'm interested to see where this goes. So he pitted all the way back on lap 8. He spent 59 seconds on pit lane, 24-second pit stop. So probably took 2 fronts. And he is just now running his first laps after getting off pit lane. So we'll see what his pace looks like compared to the Delta leaders, and we'll keep you updated because Inagaki is not running in clean air. He's running behind Castillo, he's running behind Darnell, and he's got Christian Ost 2 seconds behind, ready to cause trouble if he gets close enough. David Thomas, Alpha driver, sits back there, maybe a little bit out of position. He could end up coming further through the field. And then Fuada Ridgela, Spencer Clark lurks in the background, Delta Championship leader. He is fairly close to the front of this Delta field now, looking for big points. He's gained 8 spots since the start of the race. Now, oh, here we go. Zepka and Mike D'Almeida side by side into turn 1. And Mike D'Almeida will hold on to that spot. And P9. Damon Mitchell has not been able to make a move on John Lazon yet. And Lazon looks like he's actually holding on to the back of Fabi still. That gap has not changed. So if Fabi makes any inroads on Schenk or Mayer, then these guys might get pulled along. But I think Schenk is actually still being towed along a bit by the 3-car group that is the lead pack. And I wonder if Polasek or Hendricks will make a move for the lead here at some point. I wonder if McKenzie is causing them to go a bit slower here, and that's allowing these guys to stay attached. Zepka still hanging on to the back of Mike D'Almeida, and we'll go on board with Zepka. He drives in the Veloster, same as Mike D'Almeida ahead. Oh, and a big wiggle from Mike D'Almeida. He gets onto the curbs, and Zepka's going to go around the outside, and he's going to have a little over-under opportunity here maybe, but I think he has gone a little wide through that corner himself, and Mike D'Almeida is able to gather it up. And here comes Ian Bertolucci as both the drivers go slow. Mike D'Almeida goes wide, and now Zepka will take the position through the final corner, and Bertolucci's going to try to be the ultimate benefactor of this as they pull onto the front straight. Bertolucci is wheel to wheel with Zepka. And Bertolucci's trying to get around these guys so that he can go catch up to Lazon and Mitchell before they get too far out. But Mike D'Almeida is bump drafting Zepka all the way down the front stretch and right past Ian Bertolucci. You could see the speed advantage, and now he'll pull alongside Zepka and try and take the spot. And Zepka goes wide. He slides out, and for Mike D'Almeida, it's all worked out perfectly. And he gets into P9, and Bertolucci is going to go side by side with Zepka here. He ekes ahead, and Zepka's going to tuck in between Bertolucci and Acatella, and he's going to lose 2 spots in one and a half turns. And now Acatella is going to try and follow his double yellow teammate through here. And for Ian Bertolucci, he's looking for a little dive on Mike D'Almeida, and he's going to get this done, I think. A very good move, but Mike has gotten a good run out of that corner. Bertolucci had to go very deep, and it didn't work out for him. And now, actually, he loses so much momentum that Zepka's going to get alongside him. And so they come down to the nose chicane, and Zepka is going to pull back ahead of Bertolucci. And this scrap for P9 is at a peak right now. We're still a good probably 20-30 minutes away before a lot of these people plan to pit. Oh, here we go. Micah Hendricks trying to make a move on Michael Polasek through the final corner. Not able to get it done. Polasek does go wide. He forces Polasek over those curbs, so Hendricks will probably have a good run down the straightaway, even with the slipstream that Polasek has. So we go on board with Hendricks. And he is going to make a move into turn one. A little bit earlier on the brakes, but he manages to get deeper in them as they go into the corner, and now he's fully alongside Polasek, and they are going to once again do battle. Last time they went wheel to wheel, they ended up off track. How will they fare in turn two? Hendricks pulls in behind. He's going to look left and try and use that momentum, but Polasek covers him off. Not much Hendricks can do, considering he just had a big right-hand sweeper coming up. They have to be careful to not lose touch with McKenzie. And Hendricks really shoving Polasek through that corner as well. He is not going to give this one up. And I'm not sure if we mentioned it today, but Hendricks, we've come to Fuji Speedway 4 times in series history. Well, 4 races, and Hendricks has won all 4. That includes a sprint sweep of 2 races. So he's looking to go 5 for 5 today. One of those races was his first career win, so a lot of sentimentality for this track attached, I'm sure, for Hendricks. Zepka has just been passed by Bertolucci again, and now Raymond 2 has caught up to this group. Connor Acatella is putting Zepka in a slightly defensive stance. And this 5-car group, although Damon Mitchell is trying to escape from them a little bit, same with Mike D'Almeida. Or excuse me, Damon Mitchell and John Lazon and Gonzalo Fabi actually have escaped. They're a pretty well separate group at this point. So I don't think Bertolucci is going to be getting out to take care of that anytime soon. And we cut back into the battle for second place. Micah Hendricks up the inside of McKenzie, and now trying to squeeze in alongside Polasek, the leader, and McKenzie giving him a bump draft down to turn number 2. They will go side by side through there. Hendricks trying to hold the outside. McKenzie right there on the left. And Hendricks is going to take that through the sweeping right-hander. McKenzie's going to have to tuck back in, and Schink, that helped Schink and Mayer out. They are both reattached to this lead group. Hendricks stuck a nose in on the leader there, but wasn't able to get anything going. So now, 5-car battle for the lead at the moment. 24 minutes into the race. Still another probably 25, 26 before we start seeing some serious pit stops. It could, well, it would probably even be earlier than that. 80-minute race. People are going to be pitting probably between the 40 and 50-minute mark. But some people, of course, already have pitted, and we've talked about them. Evan Clavijo is one, and Fuada Rijla is the other, and actually they are right next to each other on track. The SERG drivers, having completed their pit stops early, are using the clean air to try and make up ground on the drivers ahead, and it looks like we might be seeing a little swap happening here. And yes, Clavijo is going to go around. So now they may be fighting this one out, though. And into turn number 2, Noah Rijla tucks in behind. So Clavijo, oh, he's going to get into a slide, though. And a big slide for the man who is trying to undercut everybody to get back onto the Delta lead. And I think he's managed to gather that one up okay. We'll look back at John Lazon with Damon Mitchell right behind him. Mitchell does not make a move. But Lazon, slow on exit. No, it looks like Mitchell's going to tuck back in behind. And Mitchell and McKenzie are very close to each other. They're starting to lose touch with Polasek a little bit here. And I get the feeling that if Polasek breaks this slipstream, he may be one of the only cars on track who has a chance of actually breaking away. And now Shink's right up on the back of McKenzie, so McKenzie has to put some pressure on Hendricks. This whole front field could suddenly lose Polasek, and this become a battle for P2 as McKenzie looks right, tucks back in. So we'll look at Ian Bertolucci, who's running directly behind Mike D'Amita. We go on board with him as they approach the no chicane under the Dunlop sign. You look for the yellow on the right to brake. We get the downshift over the curbing. And that's the battle for ninth. We'll look back at David Thomas and Christian Ost. Ost is now 5 seconds off the back of Brian Inagaki. So right now, I think Ost's target is to just try and stay ahead of championship rival Spencer Clark. But Clark is closing in. He is 1 second behind. David Thomas is the man in the middle. And speaking of Inagaki, he's still trailing Mark Darnell here for P16 overall. But the Delta leader has encountered no issues since taking the lead. It's been a fairly undramatic race for him since then. Everyone seems to have calmed down a little bit since the start. And I think Matthew Mayer had just lost some ground there through Sector 1. Actually, it was McKenzie and Hendricks both going wide in turn 1. But it does look like Mayer has lost some ground to this group. And yeah, he's now a second behind, so he's going to struggle to stay attached. Spencer Clark right on the back of David Thomas here, closing in on him towards the end of the straight. But no moves there, so we come to the close to the 28-minute mark here. And Matt Zepka is getting passed by Acatella, by Raymond too. He took a wide line through that corner. I wonder if he may have picked up a slowdown. I don't see a record of him going off track necessarily. Now Mike D'Amita under pressure from Bertolucci just ahead of that group. And Bertolucci, will he look for something going into the no chicane? He pushes Mike D'Amita through it, doesn't take advantage of anything, and same goes for the cars behind. Zepka stays behind Raymond too. Oh, but Mike D'Amita goes very wide, and that allows Bertolucci to slip on through. So he moves up to ninth. He's still down 3 spots from where he started in this race, but good on him for making the recovery thus far. So Polasek still your leader. Now it is almost an 0.8 of a second gap back to Hendricks, but look at how much time he gains on the straight. It was 0.8, 0.7. And as they approach turn 1, he will gain a whole 2.5 on the leader, and that is what is keeping this group attached right now, is that straight line speed the Audi's got. I wonder if McKenzie was in second place, if they would be struggling even more. McKenzie did just set the fastest lap of the race last time by, so these guys are moving at a breakneck pace. There's no fuel saving going on here. Brian Son is right on the back of Brian Saab. Will he try something into turn 1 on board with the complex Penguin Racing driver? The number 30 looks to the right. And here they go into turn 1. JB Dejoux is right behind them if there are pieces to pick up and aftermath. But no, Son gets ahead under braking, and it's a clean pass. Just behind, I think Daniel Cedeno cut over the curbing there, manages to keep it together. But Son and Saab are going to go too wide into turn number 2. And Saab looking to take this one back, and he does. Son looking for the over-under. Instead, he's going to look for the over-over, sticks his nose to the right side of the 52 machine, and now he has a slight advantage through this sweeper, but coming off of it, Saab will have the preferred line into the next corner on the brakes, and he stays ahead. This is the battle for 5th in class. And these guys still going at it. Son's trying to keep a nose in as they head down to the no chicane. And this is going to get dicey. Will Son stay in it? Nope. Saab will jump ahead. And he stays ahead for now. And that has allowed JB Dejoux to catch up. Saab with a bad run out of the no chicane. So now it is Son up the right side. Saab on the left. And through Sector 3, he continues. He's making these small mistakes on corner exits, but manages to stay on the side of the track he needs to be on. Zepka and 2 have exited the final corner side by side. Going through the final corner, Brian Son's going to stick a nose in. Saab trying to squeeze him out of it, but he's got to give him the space, and he gets the better exit off the corner. Back to 2 and Zepka as they head into turn 1. Noses right aligned, and Zepka is going to get the better exit out of the corner. Spencer Clark may be ready to make a move on David Thomas. Let's see if he pulls out. Nope. stays behind the rest of these drivers. But JB Dejoux may be looking for something. JB backs off, actually, as Brian Son goes for a move on Saab and can't get it done. So back to John Lazan. He and Damon Mitchell have pulled out a gap on Ian Bertolucci, Mike D'Almeida, Connor Acatella. The battle for the lead hasn't changed at all. Michael Polasek still holds the same gap he did over Hendricks and McKenzie. I guess the one change would be that this group has lost touch with Francois Schink. He's a full second behind, and like Matthew Mayer, he's going to start struggling to keep up in this slipstream. He needs them to start fighting, but I don't think that's going to happen until after the first set of pit stops. Micah Hendricks with a purple sector 2 that time by, and that Audi is hooked up right now. We'll go on board with him as they come down to turn number 1, and he does set the fastest lap of the race right there. He just has so much more speed than Polasek heading into turn number 1. 5 kilometers an hour faster than the 45. And these are the closest battles on track. These guys, and then Spencer Clark hanging out behind David Thomas, and he may be thinking of something. Thomas got a bad run out of the corner, and that's going to allow Clark to get alongside. Even with the slipstream from Ost ahead, I think Thomas may be in trouble here, and Ost actually, I think, is just kind of sitting in the middle of them, not really giving slipstream to either. Now he's giving slipstream to Thomas. Into turn number 1. The 2 Delta class championship leaders are nose to tail right now, battling for second place in the Delta class as Clark finishes the pass on David Thomas. And now he's got an injured 157 ahead of him. Right now, Clark, if you include drop weeks, Clark leads this championship by 1 point, 231 to 230. So simply finishing ahead of Ost is all he needs right now. And trouble ahead, Gonzalo Fabi. He may have picked up a slowdown because he has just dropped 2 positions. And so he is back in 8th behind John Lazan, Damon Mitchell, and he has to do that all over again. And if we look at his Sector 3 time here, we'll see just how much time he lost on that escapade. As they come across the line. But he was slowly making his way up to Matthew Mayer, so all that progress has been erased. And he did drop not even 3 seconds. So that does look like it was a slowdown, as I don't see him going off track. So bad luck for him, but he can still work his way up to at least 6th. And maybe something else happens ahead of him. He can get more. Castillo looking for a move on Cooper Akers. He's been running behind Akers for a bit. Now he's going to try and stick a nose into turn 1 just to get something going here. And now he's going to force a little wheel-to-wheel action down to turn 2. Akers on the inside. He's almost fully ahead. He's just got to take the apex, and Castillo comes into contact with his rear bumper. And here comes Mark Darnell. He's on the back of this trio, on board with Darnell through the right-hand sweeper. This is important because the Delta leader, Brian Inagaki, is right behind this group. So this is affecting his pace, his race a little bit. But he does have an 8.5 second, or excuse me. Yeah, it's an 8-second advantage. So a big lead for him. Gonzalo Fabi getting in the middle of this. He goes around Damon Mitchell into Sector 3. So he moves back up into 7th place. Micah Hendricks is still not close enough to Polasek to do anything this time by. So they'll come across the start-finish with Polasek still leading this race, 35 minutes down and 45 minutes to go here at Fuji International. And they're all closing up quite a bit by the end of that straight. Schink 2.2 seconds back now, so he has firmly lost that lead pack, and I think we got a 3-car battle for the lead unless something happens between these guys. But the field's fairly spread out now. We're just kind of waiting for people to start putting their pit strategies into effect. And here is one, Cooper Akers on pit road. We saw him hanging out ahead of Santiago Castillo. And I think he's going ahead, getting the tire change, trying to get the undercut done. We have more people on pit lane. It's Spencer Clark and Kyle Murray. Christian Ost does not pit, but Murray does. He's the final SCRG driver who had not pitted today. And then Spencer Clark will come down pit road. So those are the 3 cars pitting on this lap. And Clark has a nice pit stall. He's got that first one. And nope, that was just a blip. So we'll see Kyle Murray getting his tires. Delta leader Brian Inagaki still sitting behind Mark Darnell and Santiago Castillo. So where, if he ends up pitting, or if one of these guys ahead of him ends up pitting, where they come out in relation to Cooper Akers will give us an idea of how the over-undercut is working. Dejoux and Saab, side by side. This is taking some heat off of Brian Son. And down to the no chicane. I think Dejoux is going to try and keep this one in there. And no, he backs out of it at the last moment. He tried to get Saab to take a bad run through the chicane, and that will allow him to throw it up the inside into Sector 3. And now it's difficult to hold it around the outside of this corner, but he's already ahead of Saab, so he doesn't have to worry about it. JB into 20th. And now Michael Polisek's under extreme pressure on this lap. These guys are very close. Castillo down pit lane. So we will see now how this plays out for him. Cooper Akers spent a minute on pit lane, 24.5 seconds in his stall. So we'll keep an eye on where Castillo comes out in relation to him. Polasek is having to deal with a little bit of pressure from Hendricks on this lap. It may prevent him from opening up the gap he usually has. Brian Saab chooses to come down pit road now. It's going to get busy. Polasek over the no chicane as they come into Sector 3. The question is, do any of them pit on this lap? Now, Hendricks had a bit of a disadvantage here maybe because you have McKenzie and Polasek, Yellow Flag Motorsport teammates. Polasek sporting a special paint job for this race. But the bottom line is Hendricks has 2 teammates to deal with if he wants to win this race. So I wonder if he tries to pit early, overcut them. They're all leaning towards pit road. And they actually cut over pit road a little bit there. Polasek tried to break the draft. And down the front stretch, you see all the cars behind. And it looks like a couple of them will be coming down pit road. And some of them are SRG drivers. Castillo is coming out right behind this lead pack here, along with Kyle Murray. Murray goes around. So Murray comes out ahead of Castillo. Castillo and Saab come out just behind. That's Francois Schenck, so he'll get slowed up a little bit. The people I saw coming down pit road, yes, SRG drivers, Mitchell, Bertolucci. You have double yellow drivers, Mike D'Almeida, Raymond 2. They are all on pit road. And checking in on Spencer Clark. He has come out ahead of Evan Clavijo. So Clavijo's undercut didn't quite work out. Spencer spent 1 minute less on, or 1 minute. His total time on pit lane was 1 second less. So over time, he's just gained on Clavijo since the pit stops. And now he's in, I think, provisional Delta lead. But we'll have to, well, wait, Inagaki had a 7-second lead. So I think Clark would have to have gained quite a bit of ground to get ahead of Inagaki after the pit stops. We look back to the leaders as they come around the last corner. Looking back to Micah Hendricks. Well, I don't know what that was. A puff of smoke. Thanks, iRacing. We'll see if Polasek goes to the pits. He's looking to the right. All of them are leaning over to that side of the track. And Polasek and McKenzie come down pit lane. Polasek slows up quite a bit. McKenzie comes right up to his bumper. Definitely a slow entry for Polasek. So a moment of opportunity for Hendricks. Schink also stays out. Matthew Mayer's going to come down pit lane. And now still a few cars that have yet to pit. If we look at when these drivers have come down pit road, you see these guys are coming out now. Where is McKenzie? McKenzie and Polasek still getting tires. Matthew Mayer pulls into his stop ahead of them. Connor Acatella behind. Mark Darnell also came down pit road. Brian Inagaki stays out. McKenzie is let down before his teammate. There goes Polasek. They're going to be side by side on pit exit, but I think Polasek still has a nose ahead. And heading down to turn number 1, it'll be Polasek and McKenzie on pit lane exit. So now we look to Brian Inagaki, our Delta leader. He has yet to come down pit road. I also wonder how long Micah Hendricks will stay out. The lap that they came down pit lane, Hendricks did a 146.5. So that's the pace. We'll keep an eye on that. Inagaki is coming through the back half of the track now. He's got an 8.3 second lead over Christian Ost at this moment. He's basically got the track all to himself out there with how much space he has now that everyone he was fighting with has pitted. And Francois Schink is coming down pit road on this lap. Hendrick stays out. Gonzalo Fabi passes John Lazan because he comes down pit road. Matt Zepka stays out. And we can see Inagaki just behind Zepka. And he will be staying out as well, passing pit lane. So now Micah Hendricks and Gonzalo Fabi and Matt Zepka make up your podium positions in this race for the moment. On this lap, it was Schink and Lazan who came down pit road. And we're looking at Schink exit now. We'll see where he comes out in relation, I think, to Matthew Mayer. It might be interesting, but Mayer's been caught up in some traffic. So we'll see how close he gets, and he's all the way in the background. So Schink has a pretty clear exit, and he's got plenty of road ahead. 3.4 seconds to McKenzie and Polasek. Schink actually had a really quick stop, 22.6 seconds. That's the fastest stop of anybody so far. And a 57.3 second spent on pit road. So he gained some time. Mitchell Richtmeyer is now down pit road. And Micah Hendricks, he's thinking about it. And I think he is coming down pit lane. Here he comes, the Croc Promotions driver, pits out of the lead of the race. Trying to cover off the Yellow Flag Motorsport drivers, Michael Polasek, Logan McKenzie. Where are they right now? Coming through the no chicane. So a bit of time before we discover what happens with them. But Gonzalo Fabi, in the meantime, he passes pit lane entry and takes the lead of this race. So he is going to go ahead and pick up a bonus point for leading a lap. That's something that was certainly on a couple of these drivers' minds, I'm sure, as we came into this race, knowing people would be thinking about pitting earlier than usual, going for the lap lead by staying out is a perfectly valid move. So Fabi remains one of just a couple of drivers that have not pitted yet. We're looking at Christian Ost, Delta. He's now your Delta leader. Dennis Sedano comes down pit road. Zepka is on pit lane as well. And so just these drivers wrapping things up now. And Zepka, oh, that's interesting. They let Zepka off the jacks. And he stayed still for a bit. His pit stop was 9 seconds longer than anyone else's, and that is not going to help him out. He's going to come out well behind the group that he was battling with, and his teammate Mark Darnell is going to be coming up alongside him as he exits pit lane into turn number 1. Now, Micah Hendricks came out well ahead of Polasek, of McKenzie. It was almost a 2-second gap when he exited pit lane. Now, it's been cut down to 1.2, but he has the track position. Polasek had the track position the entire first stint. Hendricks has changed the complexion of this race a bit, and his pit stop was he spent a second and a half less on pit road than Polasek, and a half a second less than McKenzie. So Polasek lost a good bit of time. McKenzie lost a little bit of time, but Hendricks, I mean, he also gained some of that time just from being on the track and putting in good laps, while McKenzie and Polasek struggled on cold tires. Delta leader Christian Ost now pits, so Brian Son will stay out and take a few laps as the Delta leader. And that has almost entirely concluded the pit cycles. There's only 3 people who have not come down pit road yet. Brian Son, JB Dejo, and Gonzalo Fabi. And Fabi's just up there leading a few laps. Mike De Almeida on the back of his teammate Connor Acatella. They're both having a good race. Right now, provisionally, probably P9 and P10. Christian Ost is on pit exit. And we're waiting to see. Here comes Brian Inagaki. And Inagaki did come out 4.5 seconds ahead of Spencer Clark. So he has the Delta lead right now, and he will keep it as Christian Ost comes out. Here comes Spencer Clark. Not going to be able to get alongside into turn number 1. So there might still be a battle for the Delta win here. The field is closed up a little bit, but Inagaki showing that he has some really good pace in this one. He is still 4 seconds ahead of the rest of the Delta field. Evan Clavijo's early pit stop, it wasn't necessarily a disaster, but it also didn't work. He has come out just behind, or well, he's ended up just behind Ost and Clark. And I think he was just behind Ost when he's pitted all the way back at the start of the race. So kind of a wash in the end. But it was interesting to see that play out still. I think it was a good idea. It was cool to see someone, a couple drivers, try that alternate strategy. The other driver who tried that alternate strategy was Fuad Al-Rijla, and he's not that much farther off of Clavijo. We saw them swap a little bit earlier, but now he's running 6th in Delta class, and Clavijo is 5th. So just over 30 minutes to go in this race. Polasek, oh, there's a little bit of contact between Clark and Thomas. Clark may have gone a bit wide through that corner, and now into the final corner. The 919 attacks the final apex. And he and Ost just gotta hope that they've got something for Inagaki. Ost was able to get that damage repaired down pit lane, so no longer down on power on the straights. Maybe that will help him take the fight to Inagaki, find some pace that he didn't have prior. We jump back to Matt Zepka. He's pulling away from his teammate Mark Darnell since exiting the pits. But he's got about a 5-second gap to Akers ahead, and he lost essentially 11 seconds on pit road. So if you apply that time, he'd be a couple seconds off of Raymond 2. He'd still be kind of in no man's land. Essentially only lost 1 position from it. And now Hendricks still holding that provisional lead. 0.7 of a second gap over Polasek. And these guys have no reason to not fight now. Francois Schink is 7.5 seconds off this group. Polasek and McKenzie are teammates. I think that's going to facilitate a lot of fighting here. But before that can happen, they've got to catch him. Matthew Mayer and JB Dejoe. Dejoe is not pitted yet, but Mayer's going to go around him here on the front straight. And I think these couple of cars have put the max amount of fuel in and are just going long. And that is Son and Mayer and Fabi. Mark Darnell has been overtaken by the Delta leader, Brian Inagaki, and that is huge for him because now I don't think there's going to be any cars in front of him till the end of this race that are holding him up at all. I think he's going to have clean air the rest of the way. Zepka's certainly going to continue driving away, but he is going to have to finish his pass, and Darnell has the run down to turn number 1. Side by side with the Delta leader. On the outside, Darnell is going to have to yield. Inagaki goes through, but the over-under. Darnell gets back alongside to turn number 2. And now Inagaki stays alongside. Will he keep the nose in or will he back out? The Delta leader is losing precious ground to Delta rivals behind. His lead is still at 5.3 seconds, but it is dropping. And he's going wheel to wheel. They're going to have a little bit of contact. Inagaki in a battle with an Alpha driver. Despite being the Delta leader, he's just trying to get some clear air. Now he finally completes the pass. I don't think Darnell's going to be able to come back at him after that. They're going to head down to the no chicane. And looking back at Darnell, through all that, Inagaki lost about 2 full seconds to Christian Ost, and it's back to a 4-second gap. And Darnell is putting him under a lot of pressure, and he'll have to take a defensive line into Sector 3. Brian Son finally comes down. Oh, Inagaki in a big slide. Darnell does well to back out of it and not get into the back of him there. And that car behind them is Lewis Gilbert. He's a lap down. So your current Delta leader, Brian Son, finally on pit road. So Inagaki will reassume the Delta lead here, and Darnell goes wide out of the final corner, and that is exactly what Inagaki wanted to see. Now that his gap to Ost has dropped to all the way down to 3 seconds. You can see him in the background, closing with Clark and Covijo in tow. But the one thing that that group did not want to see has now happened. Inagaki has a lot of free air to roam, and Brian Son is out of his stall. He's probably going to emerge in 6th in class, as the next closest person is Daniel Sedano, who is followed by Kyle Murray and Brian Saab. And Son does exit right alongside Castillo. So Castillo might be looking for an over-under or maybe just a good run out of turn number 1. And he will be able to get alongside and maybe fully around by the time they get to turn number 1. Castillo will have the line, and he is through. Up to P23 for the ATR Argentos driver. ATR Argentos, a big team. You never know which of their drivers is going to show to these meetings. Castillo is not the only one that showed up to the track, but is the only one that started the race. Juan Lazart did not emerge from the garage. And this team has been doing a great job so far this season. In the team standings, they currently sit what looks like a P6, P7, P6. Probably won't pick up a whole lot of points from this race, but Castillo is still getting those points up there for ATR. Their other drivers, Augustin Fernandez has been a pretty regular driver in the series since last season. Almost won at Suzuka, but was denied due to a technical issue. He had a lead that wasn't that different from Bobby's. So Hendricks is under pressure now. Polasek is right on him as they come into Sector 3. They come over the no chicane. McKenzie a bit further off of them, those two. So Polasek might look to make a move right here. We come up on the 60-minute mark. This is about the time that these races would usually be winding down. But for these drivers, because of the special challenge, they've still got another 20 minutes left. And really, technically, 24 minutes right now. Let's see if Polasek can gain on Hendricks. And just not that Audi is so fast in a straight line. But I think Polasek may finally get a chance here. He is eking towards Hendricks. The gap just over a tenth. He tries to get him under braking. Hendricks is in the middle of the track and Polasek can't do anything. Now Micah Hendricks, he has won all 4 outings at this track. Can he win a 5th? That would be biblical. It would be incredible stuff. We got to see him do it first. Now Hendricks, great to see him up front. He has already picked up 1 win this season. He did that at Alton Park. That broke his, I think, his longest career winless streak. And just in general, a down season last season. But the guy is a 2-time series champion. And he's well in the thick of this championship fight. Yeah, I think it just, he's so good in that Audi compared to everyone else in this series. There's just certain drivers that can get a performance out of the Audi in a way that other people can't. And even so, it struggles at certain tracks. And it's definitely struggling over that no chicane today. Every time Hendricks clobbers that, he loses time. But he's pulling the car into contention everywhere else. Now, right now, the gap to Polasek is less than 2/10. So I think Polasek is going to get even closer on this lap. And for the rest of this race, Hendricks has popped back in. A momentary technical lapse, but we look at Polasek. We'll go on board with him. Hendricks defends to the middle of the track. Polasek looks outside. Same gap as before. If it's a 2/10 gap, then Polasek can't even get within a tenth by the end of the straight. Such is the straight line speed of the Audi. The Veloster shifts into 5th gear and just immediately loses out. So it's a big struggle for Polasek and McKenzie. There's not a whole lot they can do. We'll look back further in the field because Bertolucci and Mitchell are close to each other. And Mitchell actually, team orders perhaps, going wide. Let's see if he lets Bertolucci through. I think they're going to battle this out. SRG drivers into turn 2, and Mitchell is going to let him go. And I think this is a ploy to maybe go attack John Lazon, who is only 1.6 seconds up the road from this group. We look back to Brian Inagaki because his Delta lead is currently 3.2 seconds. So it hasn't changed much since he cleared all that traffic. Now, he only needs to hold this pace for 20 more minutes. I think that this is still a very comfortable gap, but it's a gap where if you make a mistake, Ost and Clark Ost and Clark are right there. Clavijo has lost a little bit of ground on that group. So it's really just those two. And I imagine Clark is perfectly happy to sit behind Ost if it means they are catching Inagaki. We look back to the lead of the race now. Hendricks once again on the defensive as we hit the usual end of the race, 60 minutes. But we still have 20 minutes to go. Hendricks into turn 1. Polasek is alongside him this time, and he has a little bit of space to attempt an over-under. Heading down to turn number 2, Polasek, however, is not alongside. We should see Gonzalo Fabi pull into pit lane shortly. And he's denied, I think by staying out that long, he denied Brian Son a lap lead point. I think that's the only person he denied a bonus point by doing that. And Hendricks under pressure. Polasek sends it. And they're going to go wheel to wheel now. Hendricks has a nose ahead. They head down in the nose chicane, and Polasek's going to have to tuck back in, but will he try to throw it up the inside? 3 cars battling for the lead, covered by 0.4 of a second. And Hendricks with a bad exit out of the nose chicane. Now Polasek's going to try into the final sector. The 2 touch. Hendricks holds that curb and pulls ahead. The problem is that corner right there after the entry into Sector 3, The car on the inside is such a huge advantage. It's going to be difficult for Polasek to do anything. He needs a good over-under here to have a shot. Same gap as usual, 2/10. They're closing in on some lap traffic. It'll be the only lap traffic they encounter, I think, for the rest of the race, but at least for now. And that's Jason Lynn that they are coming up to. And you see McKenzie's actually closer to Polasek than Polasek is to Hendricks. And he'll give Polasek a little bump draft. And they roll through turn 1 with Hendricks still your leader. So now we're in to overtime. The extra time added on by the special challenge. This is a real endurance race. Who can make it to the end here? Gonzalo Fabi is surely going to come down pit road soon. JB Dejoux has not pitted either. He's been hanging out in 7th place this whole time in clean air. So I wonder where he's going to come out. Polasek's going to attempt to move into this corner again. No, he thinks better of it because they're dealing with lap traffic, probably for the best. So Jason Lynn lets these guys go, and Polasek will tuck back in. McKenzie lost a little bit of ground through that, but overall, I think that was smart by Polasek to not attempt that move. And now I'm seeing something interesting on my screens. We'll look down there in a minute. Polasek will try this move again. He's got to get really far alongside Hendricks to make this work. He's got to be so far ahead of him when they get into this corner, and he just hasn't been able to do it again. And Hendricks slides back ahead. That's all he needs. Maybe Polasek can try something into the final corner. He can pin Hendricks down here. But no, not even able to do that. And the gap, too big, I think. Although Polasek has a better run this time. And what I wanted to look at was Evan Clavijo. He's exiting pit lane right now. He had to pit again for fuel. He came in a 24-second pit stop. Did he take another set of tires? Very strange. Hendricks under a lot of pressure. Polasek did get the better run. He'll get alongside to turn number 1. Hendricks is going to... wait, actually, Polasek outbrakes himself. I thought Hendricks had braked early. Polasek brakes late, and now he and McKenzie wheel to wheel, and McKenzie is going to slide into P2. So Polasek outbrakes himself there, and the teammates have swapped for the first time in a bit. And Hendricks stays on his racing line. McKenzie doesn't go for a move there. We'll look back further in the field. Christian Ost is trying to work his way around Mark Darnell now because Brian Inagaki is still 3 seconds ahead. And I think Ost has realized if I want to catch him before the end of this race, I have to get around Mark Darnell because Brian Inagaki did that. That means he's faster than Mark, so I've got to be faster than Mark. And into turn 1, Mark actually lets both of the Delta drivers go, so they are free to chase after Inagaki. Inagaki, 3-second lead right now. Hendricks still ahead of McKenzie, but this is close. Here they come up to the final corner. Now it's McKenzie's turn to attempt an over-under. Polasek's had a shot at it. Now the 0-1 off the final corner. And I don't think he's gotten the run he needs. Unless he's running a different wing setup than Polasek, I don't think he's going to be able to get alongside Hendricks here. And I don't think so. And actually, Polasek may attempt a move here on his teammate again. Let's see if he goes for it. He pulls out to the right. And McKenzie is not going to fight that one. But now Hendricks has gone deep, and an unforced error has allowed Polasek to not only go around McKenzie, but now he is a bit ahead of Hendricks. Into turn number 2. Oh, they come to blows. And now McKenzie sticks a nose in, and they come to blows, and Hendricks is sideways through the grass. And now Polasek free to run away. McKenzie gets alongside Hendricks. And Hendricks on the inside. McKenzie still wheel to wheel with the Audi driver. They're both going very slowly here. McKenzie finally gets ahead. And that, I think, was the race. I think that may have been it. Polasek is now 1.2 seconds ahead of this group. JB Dejoux has finally come down pit road. Fabi came down pit road. So Polasek will assume the lead on this lap, and he may not relinquish it. He puts 4/10 on McKenzie through that sector. McKenzie gets some of it back there, but I think we're going to see McKenzie and Hendricks battle for P2 the rest of this race, unless Hendricks can quickly clear McKenzie and then start pulling up to Hendricks or up to Polasek. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. Clark and Ost both still clear of Darnell, but something Inagaki has turned on the jets. A 1:47.3 on that last lap. He went 0.8 faster than Christian Ost. And now on the front straight, Hendricks and McKenzie are going to come to blows. Hendricks knows if he doesn't get past McKenzie on this lap, his chance of winning is probably done. Still a 1.3 second gap to Polasek ahead. John Lazan, a while back we looked at him and said Bertolucci and Mitchell were catching. Bertolucci and Mitchell have caught, and they are gone. They are around Lazan, and they are into 7th and 8th. Acatella passed his teammate, Mike D'Almeida. I think they were in a different order before, but they are running 10th and 11th. And Matt Zepka has caught Cooper Akers and is working on him for 13th overall. Will he go for it into turn number 1? To the right side. The Sia driver trying to take 13th position. And Akers trying to go for the over-under. But Zepka parks it on the apex, doesn't allow it, and he is ahead of the 29. And look at this, a battle for position all the way back in 30th. But Craig and Lewis Gilbert, Craig Lautenslaughter, they're having to let some traffic through. So trying to battle. And look at this. Look at this. Spencer Clark has decided that Ost is not going to catch Inagaki. So he goes around Ost, and now it's a 5-second gap to Inagaki. I think Brian Inagaki is in a great position here to take a victory at Fuji Speedway. Inagaki, now we've talked about Spencer Clark. He's at 231 points. Ost is at 230. Inagaki, 227. If he wins this race, if he finishes where he is now, then he might take the Delta lead. We look to the battle for P2. Hendricks and McKenzie were alongside each other for a moment, but McKenzie holds on through turn 1, and they are actually somewhat keeping up with Polasek. So this is not over yet. And if Hendricks can get around McKenzie, he could still get up there. 11 minutes to go in this race. And let's see, what else to look for as this race comes to a close. Spencer Clark, I don't think he's going to catch Brian Inagaki, so we'll keep an eye on that battle for Delta P2. We'll keep an eye on this battle for the overall P2. John Lazan hasn't fully lost touch with Damon Mitchell, so he may come back at him. And then Mark Darnell could have something to say to the Delta podium sitters. It's been 70 minutes of non-stop racing here in Japan. The Alpha Touring Challenge about to finish up its 4th visit to Fuji. And it's the 5th race that we've run here all time. After this week, we'll be heading to Road Atlanta for the halfway point of this 13-race season. And as I say that, Damon Mitchell has been overtaken by John Lazan, but John Lazan lets him back by. So I think Lazan may have overcooked it into the no chicane or something, because he had to immediately give the position back. But we go to Road Atlanta next week. The final race at Road Atlanta will be the Series 250th race all time. So fun times, good stuff to look forward to. 9 minutes to go now. McKenzie has once again lost touch with Polasek, so Hendricks has got to turn on the jets if he wants to get something done before the end of this race. We're on board with the Croc Promotions driver now. Hendricks, so far in this season, he has scored at least 105 points in every single round. So there is a reason that he is third in the championship right now. McKenzie, I mean, if you didn't take drops into account, Hendricks would be way ahead of McKenzie. McKenzie's had 2 races where he scored, or 2 rounds where he scored 91 and 92 points respectively. And then Polasek did not attend the Indianapolis round last week. So Micah has been the most consistent driver of the top 3 this season, despite only being on the top step once. And that's stuff that eventually pays off towards the end of the season. Especially if people like Polasek, like McKenzie, have trouble. We've seen it before. You use up all those drop weeks, and suddenly winning every race is not enough. Consistency is key, and it wins championships more often than not. We look back to John Lazan. He is a half second off of Mitchell. I don't think he's going to be close enough to do anything on this lap. And down into turn number 1, Micah Hendricks right on the back of McKenzie. Polasek got a bad run onto the front stretch, so his lead evaporated again. And that is a 0.6 of a second lead for Polasek now. Hendricks went purple in Sector 1 on that last lap. He still has the pace in him. He just can't get around McKenzie, despite having that Audi overspeed. McKenzie's just getting those good exits off the final corner. We look back to Fuad Al-Rijla. He has caught up to the back of these guys. Spencer Clark, Christian Ost, Evan Clavijo, his teammate, pitted, so Al-Rijla is here to pick up the pieces for SCRG. He is in the slipstream of Mark Darnell. And on board with Al-Rijla. Darnell trying to break the toe a little bit. And into turn 1, Al-Rijla not able to get alongside just yet. Matt Zepka hasn't been able to detach from Cooper Akers, so there could still be a battle developing there. And then Connor Acatella and Mike D'Almeida still running nose to tail. They are teammates, so they probably won't be doing any serious fighting, at least not until maybe the end of the race. And Daniel Cedeno and Kyle Murray are in a battle for P6 in class towards the end of this race. Looking to McKenzie again, this time Hendricks on the inside of turn 1. And McKenzie gets a big sweeping entry to try and get the run out of the corner. And this, if Hendricks doesn't pull off this pass soon, will be where they lose Polasek. Everyone's headlights just came on as the sun sets here at Fuji. McKenzie and Polasek roll through turn 2. And this battle for second place could have championship implications down the line. The difference between first place and second place here, that is a full 4 points. First place gets 120, second gets 114, third gets 110. So there's a lot on the line for all of these positions. They come down to the nose chicane, and with 5 minutes to go, and we're doing just under 2-minute laps. We'll see when they cross the line. I think it's going to be 3 laps to go when we cross the line. And Al-Rijla very close to Darnell. He may go for it here into turn 1. Gets the nose in. Fully alongside. Darnell leaves him the space. And they are still wheel to wheel. McKenzie and Hendricks are also wheel to wheel. They touch coming out of the final corner. McKenzie gets the better run. Back to Al-Rijla and Mark Darnell. Al-Rijla working around him and gets by. David Thomas tucks in behind. McKenzie is losing out to Hendricks as they go down the front stretch. This will be the best advantage that Hendricks has had on the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver this entire time. They hit turn number 1. McKenzie will look for the over-under here. Gets a good run. Gets to the right side. Here we go. And not on board. Will look outboard. Left-hander. Turn 2. McKenzie tucks in. And I think that's it. I think Hendricks has lost this position. 1.4 second gap to Polasek now. His lead safe once again. So now, the question is, can Hendricks pull a ton of pace out of nowhere and get up to Polasek, or will McKenzie get this spot back? Still monitoring the other battles on track, no change yet. Brian Inagaki still holds a 5-second lead over Spencer Clark. Through the nose chicane. McKenzie with a run. He's going to set it up the inside. We saw Polasek try this move a couple times. He's not very far alongside. And he is going to lose out through this corner as expected. 3 minutes to go. We come to the line with 2 laps left in this race. One of the longest races in series history. We've done special events that have gone for 1 hour 15, 1 hour 20 is a bit more than usual. The only race that has ever gone longer was the first race ever in series history. It was a 90-minute race at Charlotte. The 45 leads, and he leads by a lot. McKenzie's going to choose the right side as Hendricks chooses to squeeze him down the inside of the track. And now they dart to the outside to take the corner. They come to blows. McKenzie slips ahead out of turn 1. The Yellow Flag Motorsport driver back into P2. And Polasek just took fastest lap of the race, running in clean air on that last lap, a 46.27. He is pulling away. On board with Hendricks. Mike D'Almeida not close to Acatella. Ost and Thomas not getting close to their competitors, and Sedano still behind Murray. Hendricks trying to put some pressure on him as they come through the nose chicane. Will he try something here? He looks to the left, actually. And nothing able to do there. McKenzie goes a little wide, but stays ahead. So Polasek, now with a 2.5 second lead, he just has to bring this one home. He's coming through Sector 3 to get the white flag. Polasek, he's had a good season so far, and he is very much in the hunt for that first career title. He almost had it last season, but just wasn't able to accumulate the points this season. He's going to have to drive well. He's going to have to drive perfectly, because I believe he plans to use both those drops. But for now, he is on course to take victory here at Fuji. And that would be his 4th victory of the season. Hendricks not close enough to do anything with McKenzie, I think. Well, he's going to get alongside. Will he try an over-under? He will. He's got the space. So on the final lap, the podium positions are not settled. Into turn number 2. Hendricks has a slight advantage as they roll through it. They come to contact. He doors McKenzie to the left as he had to get back on track. And McKenzie tries to keep the nose in. He's just going to throw it up the inside. You have to. It's the final lap. They hit the apex and they're still wheel to wheel. Oh, and a big impact. They're going to take this all the way down to the nose chicane. McKenzie has to keep a nose in here if he wants this position. They come to the final sector. Through the chicane, Hendricks ahead, over the curb, and they come together. Hendricks goes wide. McKenzie also wide, but he is not spun around. He's going to stay ahead. Here comes Francois Schink. He sees the carnage. Christian Ost and Spencer Clark going side by side on this final lap. Michael Polasek, after all this excitement through the final corner, he will claim his 4th victory of the season. Fuji Speedway sees a new winner, and it is the 45 Polasek wins by, in the end, almost 10 seconds, but it was a close race from flag to flag. He brings it home, and Logan McKenzie, P2 after that incident. I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that. But Hendricks and McKenzie coming to blows on that final lap. McKenzie stays ahead. Hendricks P3. Schink P4. Matthew Mayer will stay ahead of Gonzalo Fabi. He was hunting him in the end, but he will be P5. Ost and Clark still fighting this one out. I think Ost may have snuck this one. He waited to the last minute to get back ahead of Clark, and now through Sector 3. He's just got to hold on. Bertolucci, Mitchell, Lazan, Akatela, and the Almeida will all come across the line. Brian Inagaki, 6 seconds ahead of this group, much like the Alpha leaders. Second and third battling for position, while first drives off into the Japanese sunset. Inagaki, he's driven a fantastic race. He had the pace, and he brings it home at Fuji Speedway. The 34 is victorious after 80 minutes of racing. Christian Ost will be P2 if he can win the drag race to the line. It's Ost by 3/100th of a second. The 157 stays ahead of the 919. At the line, he just barely ekes that one out. And that is going to wrap this race up. Kyle Murray, Evan Clavijo, Brian Saab all come to the line. And that is going to wrap this race. Brian Inagaki, your Delta winner. Michael Polasek, your overall winner. One of the longest races in series history. An incredible endurance race and a lot of close battling all the way to the end. Nobody had to worry about fuel saving. It was just keep the tires in the window, keep them in play, and you got a chance. Ost goes by there for Inagaki. He is on top. And for Inagaki, that is his second victory of the season. And with Spencer Clark ending up behind Christian Ost, the Delta Championship is going to be very close. So those three will all be essentially level when we head to Road Atlanta for the halfway point of the season. So everyone has finished an hour and basically 25 minutes of racing in the end. We'll come back to you shortly to show off the final results here at Fuji Speedway. So here we go. 80 minutes of racing at Fuji Speedway has concluded, and what a race it was. Let's take a look at your final results, starting with the Alpha class. Michael Polasek is your winner, 9.4 seconds ahead of McKenzie. That is after McKenzie and Hendricks came together on that the penultimate lap. Schink, P4, Mayer P5, and then Fabi, Bertolucci, Mitchell, Lazan, Akatela, then Mike D'Almeida, Raymond 2, Matt Zepka, Cooper Akers, Mark Darnell, Thomas Castillo, and JB Dijo. Then the Delta class. Brian Inagaki wins. He ends up with a 6.2 second advantage over everyone else in class. Christian Ost and Spencer Clark photo finish to decide P2 in class. And then Fuad Al-Rijla with a 4th place finish in class. That's a great spot for him. Then Son all the way back in P5. Then Murray, Clavijo, Saab, Sedano, and Lynn round out the top 10. Rickmeyer, Gilbert, Lautenslauer, Bowman, Mikulicek, and Lazar, who did not start. One more look at your final race results. Well, that's going to do it from here at Fuji Speedway. The Alpha Touring Challenge heads to Road Atlanta next week for an incredible 2 sprint races. It is essentially one of the series' home tracks. We've been there every season except season 10. So it will be, I'm sure, a crazy fight. Love to see you there. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.